There are mornings in television that nobody plans for. A chair sits empty, a schedule shifts without warning, and the people watching at home are left wondering what happened behind the scenes. For Eamonn Holmes, one of the most recognizable faces in British broadcasting, one particular morning began not in a studio, but in the back of an ambulance. The news came directly from Eamonn himself. No publicist statement. No carefully worded press release from a network. Just a photograph from inside an ambulance, shared on social media, and a caption that stopped his followers cold. He had suffered a fall at home on his bathroom floor, described the pain as severe, and personally thanked the ambulance crew who came to his aid. For a man who spent the better part of 4 decades presenting polished, high-energy morning television to millions of British viewers, the image was jarring, and for many people, deeply upsetting. Hours later, he posted again. This time from a hospital bed. It was a holiday weekend. He had not planned to be there. And in just a handful of words, he summed up what has become a genuinely difficult chapter in his life, admitting openly that things are not easy, that the road has been hard, and expressing gratitude to the people caring for him. Short sentences, but the kind that land heavily when you know the full story behind them. To understand why this moment resonated so widely, you have to go back a few years. Eamonn's health troubles did not appear overnight. They crept in gradually, then hit with a force that fundamentally changed his day-to-day life. It started in 2021 with chronic back pain that he initially tried to manage and push through, the kind of thing a broadcaster of his generation might quietly endure rather than publicize. But the source of the pain turned out to be serious. 3 slipped discs, a dislocated pelvis, conditions that demanded surgical intervention, and a recovery process that proved far from straightforward. He had his first major spinal surgery, but the aftermath brought further complications. In 2022, while still recovering at home from that procedure, he suffered a fall down the stairs, fracturing his shoulder and requiring yet another emergency operation. Then came a third surgery in 2023. 3 major procedures in the space of a few years, each one a serious undertaking, each one followed by a recovery period that kept him away from the studio and dependent on the support of those around him. In some of the most candid interviews he has given during this period, Eamonn has not shied away from the reality of his situation. He has spoken openly about now relying on a wheelchair for most of his movement. He has described having carers with him throughout the day, people who help him get out of a chair, who assist him with getting dressed in the morning and undressed at night, who are present for the small daily tasks that most of us perform without a second thought. He called it humiliating and humbling in equal measure. He said he cannot remember what life felt like without pain. And yet he kept showing up to GB News, to his social media, to the public conversations that his audience still clearly wanted to have with him. What made one particular social media post especially poignant, shared not long after his May hospital visit, was a photograph. A throwback image of himself from just 3 years prior, standing freely, on his own 2 feet, without assistance of any kind. He looked at that picture, and by his own admission, it made him sad, because he could walk then. And the contrast between that version of himself and his current reality clearly weighed on him. But what followed that admission was not self-pity. It was determination. He said he needed to redouble his efforts. That quiet resolve, expressed so simply, generated an outpouring of support from colleagues, fans, and fellow broadcasters who clearly still cared deeply about this man. The affection is understandable when you consider what Eamonn Holmes represents in the story of British morning television. He is not simply a familiar face. He is, in many ways, one of the architects of how the nation starts its day. His time at GMTV stretched across more than a decade. His Friday presenting partnership on This Morning with Ruth Langsford ran from 2006 to 2021, 15 years of live television that produced some of the most memorable and occasionally combustible moments daytime TV has ever seen. Their dynamic was genuine, their chemistry undeniable, and their audience loyal in a way that only comes when viewers feel they truly know the people on their screen. Since 2022, Eamonn has been at GB News, co-hosting the breakfast program with Isabel Webster. The move surprised some in the industry and divided opinion among his fan base. But the transition represented something important, a broadcaster refusing to step aside quietly, refusing to let the health challenges define his professional identity, continuing to show up and do the job even when doing so required far more effort than the audience ever sees. His personal life during this same stretch has also seen profound change. His marriage to Ruth Langsford, a partnership spanning nearly 3 decades, came to an end in 2024. The announcement was quiet and dignified, with both parties expressing a desire to remain amicable, but the reality of such a long relationship ending, compounded by serious health struggles, could not have been easy to navigate. He has since found a new relationship and spoken about it positively. But the layering of personal upheaval on top of physical challenge paints a picture of a man carrying a great deal, even as he continues to face the public with his characteristic directness. That directness is perhaps the most consistent thread running through everything Eamonn Holmes has shared during this difficult period. There is no performance of strength. There is no carefully managed narrative designed to reassure sponsors or networks. When he says something hurts, it is because it hurts. When a photograph of his former self makes him emotional, he says so plainly. When a hospital visit interrupts a holiday weekend, he tells you exactly where he is and exactly how he feels about it. In a media environment saturated with carefully curated images and managed messaging, there is something genuinely rare about that kind of honesty, and it is almost certainly why his following remains so engaged and so warm towards him. The response to his latest admission was immediate. Colleagues from across the broadcasting world offered their support. Fans who have followed him for decades left messages of encouragement. People who have faced their own health challenges wrote in with solidarity, recognizing something of their own experience in what he had shared. That connection between a television presenter and the people who watch him does not happen by accident. It is built over years of showing up, being real, and letting people in. Where things go from here for Eamonn Holmes is something only time will tell. He has not made grand promises about timelines or recoveries. He has spoken instead about the work, the physiotherapy, the treatments, the incremental progress that chronic health challenges demand. He mentioned an anti-gravity treadmill he had been using to help his legs remember how to move. Small steps, literally, but steps nonetheless. What is clear is that the public chapter of Eamonn Holmes' health journey is one that British television audiences are following with genuine care. Not because of celebrity fascination, but because of something more human than that. He has shared the difficult parts honestly, and in doing so, he has made a lot of people feel less alone in their own struggles. If you've been following Eamonn's journey, and this update brought something up for you, whether it's admiration, concern, or just the wish that he keeps going, leave a comment below and let us know. If you want to stay across the latest from the world of British broadcasting and morning television, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if this video was worth your time, a like genuinely helps. Until next time, take care.